Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Today is August the 4th, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, there are a few times in life, and all of us have this list, where it all comes together. It's an A+ moment, right? Maybe it's the day you got married. In fact, maybe it's that first date with someone special, right? Maybe it's that time out with your crew where things just broke right. Whatever it is, the stars aligned. That moment delivered. That moment was extraordinary. Now, again, we all have our lists. When it comes to boxing, there have been a few moments in my life where a boxing event just over-delivered. Just hit a certain point where I understood that to get to that point was not something I could expect. It exceeded expectations. I'm going to name some fights that fall into that category for me. Now understand, right? I was a kid in the 1970s. The world was a little bit different then. Some of the fights I'm going to name, I didn't even see live. Right? Adults were able to go to movie theaters to see these fights, not young kids. Right? You know, some of these fights I saw weeks later when they came on network TV. By the way, there's no VCR back then. There's no internet for the public back then. Right? You had to literally make sure that you were watching ABC Wide World of Sports when the replay came on. Right? Let me also point out too, I'm sure there are many of you watching these videos that remember when the NBA Finals were on tape delay. Same type thing. So these are the fights in my life, and I wasn't conscious during the 60s. Right? The world starts for me really in the 70s. At least the parts I remember. Here are the fights that for me completely over-delivered. In other words, the fight was big going in, right? It was a mega event going in. The expectations were high going in. And then somehow, and this is the beauty of boxing, somehow the event even topped that. Whatever you were expecting, the event happened, and the event was even bigger than the expectation. These are the A+ fights I've seen, right? Fights I wrote down today. I'm sure there's some I'm forgetting here. But Foreman versus Ali, and it needs to be remembered that way, because the champion was George Foreman. Right? Foreman versus Ali was one of those fights. I can tell you, I remember waking up the next day and hearing Ali won the fight, and I was baffled. I mean, baffled. You started hearing terms like rope-a-dope, and you thought, what the hell is that? Then when you saw the fight, it was remarkable. Right? Another fight, Ali versus Frazier, the thriller in Manila. Let's face it, the first fight's a mismatch. Frazier beats him up. The second fight's a little dodgy. Ali's holding Frazier behind his neck. You get to the third fight. I heard the fight was great. I thought, okay. Then I sat down and I watched the fight. Right? When it came on network TV, that fight's spectacular. Let's talk about some other A+ moments. Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguello. the first fight. As you're watching the fight, you're thinking to yourself, is this fight this good? No. Both guys get hurt. Both guys get hurt. Both guys have their A games going. That fight's crazy. Another fight, completely over-delivered. I wasn't even expecting the fight to be competitive. Marvelous Marvin Hagler against Sugar Ray Leonard. In fact, let's back up on Leonard. There's another Leonard fight. Crazy. Completely over-delivers. Right? It's Ray Leonard against Thomas the Hitman Hearns. The first fight. Let's back up on Hagler. There's a fight that was huge, that you thought would be a mismatch. This fight over-delivered. It was Marvelous Marvin Hagler against Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Where were you during the first round of that fight? Right? More recently, a fight that I knew was a mismatch. I knew it. I came here online. I made a video on the fight. Ironically, I believe it's the most watched video I made. I thought, look, how possibly could the golden boy, Oscar De La Hoya, my pick in the fight, lose to a much smaller guy? I knew he had faster hands, but I thought, this guy's jumping 2 weight classes. This is a gimmick. Manny Pacquiao. And then I saw De La Hoya versus Pacquiao. I know we remember it now as Pacquiao versus De La Hoya. But at the time, the big fish in the pond was Oscar De La Hoya. Then you saw the fight. That fight is better than any boxing movie I've seen in my life. Right? The underdog comes out. I don't know what can be said. The hand speed, you knew it was fast going in. But in that fight, it's a blur. The guy in his corner, Freddie Roach, is having a conversation with his fighter throughout the fight. And they reach a point where Freddie Roach turns to him and basically says to him, end the fight right here. To his guy. The guy who isn't even supposed to be at the weight class. And Pacquiao looks at his trainer and nods at him, and you're the viewer watching it. And that's when you totally understand. These guys not only expect to win, they expect to win by stoppage this round. Well, let me just say, I mention all of this because this year, a fight like that happened. Let's be clear. It's one of the best fights I've ever seen in my life. The whole thing worked. Huge event. Huge event. Going in. Right? I thought it was going to be a mismatch. I'll be blunt. I thought the young, unbeaten champion, who as I make this video still has not gone the distance in a fight, was going to be in way over his head against a guy who had held a heavyweight belt for years, who had only lost once in the preceding decade. Right? So, as Anthony Joshua and Wladimir Klitschko enter the ring, right? Klitschko first and then Joshua comes in. And Joshua takes about 5 minutes to get to the ring, and the crowd is going crazy. At one point, he stands up on a podium, and something flashes, AJ. Right? Then he hops in the ring. As I was watching that live, I felt bad for AJ. I thought, you know what? This guy could be badly embarrassed. The first round starts, and Wladimir Klitschko is on his front foot. He's hunting down AJ behind a stiff jab. What then transpires is a young champion knocking down the old lion in the 5th round. The old lion gets off the canvas, then looks great the rest of the round. I know it's crazy. Then the old lion knocks down the young champion, who's dead in the water. I think that's the 6th round. I could be off on the rounds. Right? The mythology is even more powerful than the fight. Young champ gets up, is about to be embarrassed. He's dead. The fight's over. Young champ finds a way to survive. Young champ survives the next round. Suddenly, we're in the 11th round, and the fight's competitive. Then the young champ throws the best uppercut I've seen in my life before this phone call. Right? Huge uppercut. The old lion eventually goes down. Now he's in the United Kingdom. Perhaps he's thinking about Memphis Blues. Well, he's in the United Kingdom. And you know the rest. He's in the den of the young champion. And he decides he's going to get up in the 11th round. Gets off the canvas after being nearly decapitated by a spectacular uppercut. Young champ goes on to get the stoppage. Knocks him down again in the round. For my money, Joshua versus Klitschko is one of the best fights I've seen in my life. Right? That's an A+ moment for boxing. A+ event beforehand, A+ event during the fight, A+ event after the fight. Both guys, a lot of class. Right? So, when I think of Wladimir Klitschko, wow. While selfishly, as a boxing fan, I'd love for him to continue his career. If that's the fight he's going to walk away from the sport on, all I can do is applaud. He gave us some great memories over the year. He left on really one of the best fights I've seen in my life. That's a fight where you're cheering both guys after the fight. Right? Both guys. Let me say this. As positively as we remember that fight right now, and to me, it's clearly the moment of the year in boxing, right? And boxing's had some great moments. Errol Spence, Kell Brook, great moment, right? Boxing's had some great moments this year. But these A+ moments are the kind you remember for years, right? You'll remember this fight even more if Anthony Joshua goes on to several years of dominance, right? If nobody else knocks down Anthony Joshua, you'll remember the moment here where he got dropped by a future Hall of Famer and how he got off the canvas and how he survived the round, right? Klitschko is 41. As a 40-something crowd here online's aware, as you get older, your values change a little bit. Your hunger changes a little bit after you've had a few meals. Your priorities change. Right? Before it's about proving yourself. You hit a certain age, you start to have kids, you're around young people who actually look up to you. Right? That was a shocker to me when I was younger, right? I'm older now. I remember being younger and folks who were younger than me were coming up to me for advice. And I remember looking at them and taking a while to realize, you're coming to me for advice? I'm now an authority figure? Well, people are coming up to Wladimir Klitschko for advice. He understands now when he enters a room, he's not the guy in the corner just checking out the club. He understands that there are people looking at him as a role model. Let me just say the sport of boxing is very well served with this guy as a role model. He was a very classy champ. The fact that we have guys now who are top contenders, whose only loss in their careers was to Wladimir Klitschko. Let me name two of them. Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Povetkin. Right? The fact that Klitschko fought these guys, right? Fought guys like David Haye, right? Guys who are still viable today at heavyweight. The fact that Klitschko, his last fight, he takes on an unbeaten heavyweight champion, just tells you the way the game is supposed to be played. You're an elite heavyweight, you take on other elite heavyweights. You want the belt, you go get it, you show up in shape. Right? If the champ is in the United Kingdom, you go to the United Kingdom to fight the champ before 90,000 people. Right? In my opinion, Wladimir Klitschko leaving the sport as a boxer is a huge loss for the sport. Right? This guy was just the way the game's supposed to be. The way a fighter is supposed to comport himself. Right? I wish Klitschko well. Sooner or later, Father Time is going to beat all of us. Right? A guy who has given years of his life to the sport, who now is at the stage of his life where he wants to be more of a father to his child and stuff like that. Maybe even put a ring on Hayden Panseri's finger, right? She's been his fiance now for like 3 years. A guy who has a life he wants to explore more, right? I just say to him, thank you for all the good things you've brought to the sport of boxing. Much appreciated. From this seat, this boxing fan is very grateful. Now let's talk about where it leaves the heavyweight division, because I believe it leaves the heavyweight division in flux. I want to encourage people now to go to boxing.com/ranking. You're going to see a listing of who's who in the heavyweight division for the various big-time organizations. WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO. Right? Now let me just say, I believe now, with this guy leaving, and with this many champions, right? Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, right? All jockeying for position, right? A lot of guys haven't fought a lot of other guys. Think about it. We have 3 champs, and yet all 3 are unbeaten. How's that even possible? I thought you're supposed to fight guys on the way up. How do we have 3 guys who've made it through the heavyweight division unbeaten? So what's going to happen? At least in my view, because boxing's political, because you can fight the best and still be stripped of your belt, right? What's going to happen is you're going to have guys going for the money. Right? You're going to have sanctioning bodies stripping fighters, being intolerant to the fighter, saying, you know what? Let me just fight Deontay Wilder here. He's unbeaten. He's a champion. He's a credible opponent. He's a world-class opponent. Let me just fight him because I know it's going to get me a lot of money. And then I'll pivot and I'll come back over here and I'll fight the mandatory contender. You're going to have a lot of sanctioning bodies saying, no, you do that, we're going to strip you. You're going to have a lot of fighters saying, you know what, this belt around my waist, I'm going to, like Riddick Bowe, throw this belt in the trash can. Because I want Batman's belt. Right? I want to go to New Zealand. I want to fight Joseph Parker. You're going to have promoters coming out of the woodwork. looking at popular fighters in popular locations and offering opponents big time money to travel to fight their fighter at that fighter's location. Didn't Manny Pacquiao, dare I say, a bigger name worldwide than Jeff Horn? Didn't Manny Pacquiao travel to Australia to fight Jeff Horn? And when he showed up, what did he find? He found an arena with more than 50,000 people there. So, right now, understand, you're Anthony Joshua, right? You're AJ. You got some big names out there calling you out, right? You're thinking about your legacy. You just fought Wladimir Klitschko, folks. You just fought a historical fighter, guy who was heavyweight champion for years. Now you have another heavyweight champion who's unbeaten, who, like you, has a huge KO percentage. Deontay Wilder. Now, if you're AJ, do you fight the very dangerous mandatory challengers? Now, understand, he has more than one belt. What that means is he has more than one mandatory. So you got Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz's nickname could easily be Dangerous Luis Ortiz, right? He calls himself King Kong. Just know that he's dangerous. Right? Now, you could fight Dangerous Luis Ortiz. You could fight very dangerous Kubrat Pulev. Understand, in the heavyweight division, they're jabs and then they're jabs. Kubrat Pulev might have the best jab in the heavyweight division. Right? Joseph Parker is a great jab, doesn't know how to use it. Kubrat Pulev knows how to use it. The only guy he's lost to is Wladimir Klitschko. What's a knock on Anthony Joshua? Let's face it. Anthony Joshua is a plotter. He's not a guy who moves fast. When you're thinking of great feet, when you're thinking about the Ali Shuffle, when you're thinking about a guy up on his toes who's able to move, you're not thinking about flat-footed, clumsy Anthony Joshua. So if Kubrat Pulev, who dissected Alexander Ustinov, Google that fight, gave Ustinov his first loss. If Kubrat Pulev can set up shop against a slower-moving opponent and can pulverize that guy with a jab, if you're Anthony Joshua, even if you hit harder than Kubrat Pulev, you understand Kubrat Pulev could be a very frustrating opponent. Right? You know that. So, the question is, and I'm just asking this to the boxing public, I hope you tell me in the comment section to this video. If you're Anthony Joshua, are you fooling around with these dangerous mandatories? Or are you considering the idea for legacy of perhaps giving up a belt or two to fight a voluntary against Deontay Wilder? Easy fight to sell, folks. 2 unbeaten champions. 2 big-time KO punches. I believe that between the 2 of them, and understand, Wilder's had more than 30 fights. He's gone 12 rounds, I believe, once. Between the 2 of them, a fight's only gone the distance once. If you pay for the pay-per-view, I think you know you need to be there early in the first round. This isn't the fight where you say, hey, I'm using the bathroom. Hey, don't worry, honey. I'll be out there in a round or 2. No, no, no. You need to be there in the first round, because this fight might not go a round or 2. Right? What about Deontay Wilder? You're getting pressured to fight Bermane Stiverne. Haven't you been there? Haven't you done that? What part of that fight has the public not seen? By the way, that's the fight Wilder went the distance on. Right? But understand, Bermane Stiverne, who is one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in the sport of boxing. Right? Like David Haye, he's a huge puncher. Outsized puncher. But Bermane Stiverne is like molasses when it comes to foot speed, isn't he? You don't notice it when opponents like Chris Arreola have the bright idea of running up to Bermane Stiverne, right? You don't notice it because Stiverne's able to then show you the power I'm talking about and take the guy out because the guy's here in his neighborhood. Deontay Wilder, now think about it. Wilder's a great knockout puncher himself. But Wilder understood. Right? Even though Wilder is a big punch, Wilder understood. Okay, Bermane Stiverne, huge punch. Why am I hanging around the pocket? Let me just move a little bit outside the pocket. By the time this guy gets over to me, I will have landed several punches. So, if you're Wilder, he already has a notch on his belt from beating Bermane Stiverne. How's that going to help his legacy? Not only that, you can imagine how uninspiring that potential rematch is to promoters and to television networks, right? I'm sure as they shop this fight to TV outlets, a lot of these outlets are saying, yeah, we're interested in Wilder against who? Who are you talking about? When they say Stiverne, there's probably a groan in the room. So think about it. If Wilder were to fight Joshua, there's a possibility. And keep in mind, this is boxing, so this is really sports' twilight zone. There's a possibility that these two unbeaten champions could both get stripped before that fight in a battle of unbeatens. Right? What I see happening is that the guys with box office appeal, right? The guys who can talk, the guys who have fans who are excited about them and who want to see them, right? They're going to benefit here. I think Dylan White is going to benefit. I think Jarrell Miller is going to benefit. The guys who might have more skill, but who aren't really talkers or who have made mistakes in the past, right? Alexander Ustinov, Alexander Povetkin, right? The non-talkers who don't have a lot of box office pull, and the guys who are dangerous, Kubrat Pulev, they might actually lose out in the new regime. I'm expecting some champs to give up their belts, looking for gold against other fighters who could make their legacy. I'm expecting some deserving mandatory contenders to be passed over. They might get a shot to fight for the title, but it won't be in a glamorous fight against some of the guys who have gotten some great box office and television numbers in the past. Just know that right now, the heavyweight division is unsettled, right? It's very unsettled. You don't really have that Wladimir Klitschko presence where, as I like to say, you're in a bar, your back is to the door, a guy walks in, and you say, who's that? And the person next to you says, oh, that's the heavyweight champion of the world. There was a time where you understood that meant that the guy at the door was Mike Tyson, where the guy at the door is Wladimir Klitschko. Right? These days, you actually have to turn around and look to see who it is. That's the world we're in. Just expect chaos for at least the next 12 months. Understand, too, you have some guys who could be king. Right? Tyson Fury, who right now isn't center stage. Right? He's dealing with regulatory bodies. Right? David Haye, he's coming back from an injury. Right? You have some guys right now who could reemerge. You have some guys right now who could be king if the fight just happens. I like Luis Ortiz's chances against both Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Right? If Joseph Parker could just show me a little bit more fire and a little bit more of a front foot game, I'm not sure if anybody beats his A game at heavyweight. Right? There's some men who are king, but who need to avoid their mandatories if they want to make a lot of money. Then you have the guys who could be king if they just get the opportunity, or if they figure out a few things, or if they get by the regulatory body. That's the heavyweight division 2017. We've just lost a giant, Wladimir Klitschko. Right? Expect a civil war. I'm not really sure who ends up on top. Right? Let's hope somehow Joshua and Deontay Wilder find a way to navigate this maze so they could face each other in what could possibly be another A+ moment for boxing. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.